Sends it to Buffkin. Kobe Buffkin with 5 seconds to go. Cut off. Buffkin. Howard around Cobb. He missed it. And that shot will not count. Indiana has pulled it off in Ann Arbor. 62-61. The short-handed Hoosiers snap.
That's the way the final play sounded on ESPN. Thanks for the audio there. Welcome in. It's the Michigan basketball postgame live here on the Maize and Blue Review. I'm Dennis Fithian, 62-61. You heard it right there. We're ready to get this one underway. Michigan had to have this game tonight to get themselves in position to have a legitimate shot to get into the NCAA tournament. This one hurts, not being able to pull this one off. They had plenty of chances in this one. We take your feedback, we take your calls, or you can just sit back and listen to me break this one down for you. You know, Michigan played really well this game, and they just got down the stretch where there was 3 minutes to go. It is a 1-point game. You know, Michigan is up, and Michigan wanted to get Hunter Dickinson a touchdown in the post. Hunter Dickinson had played really well. Trace Jackson Davis was doing an amazing job for the Hoosiers. Dickinson, Michigan's lefty. It was like, you know, the two southpaws, you know, going at it, the two best players on each team. And Michigan just got, what do you say, out of sorts. They just couldn't get the ball down to Dickinson. And then when they did, he kicked it back out one time to Buffkin, who didn't take the three. And they went back to Dickinson, and Buffkin had a pretty good shot, but it was a floater, but he missed it. Doug McDaniel drove the lane and had the ball swatted very close. Could have been called a goaltend. It wasn't. I'm just looking at Michigan's final couple plays and down the stretch when it was a 1-point game. It's not like Indiana. Indiana is sitting over there. They turn it over. They travel. I mean, they gave this one, I say gift wrapped it for Michigan, but the Wolverines had their shot. But then the killer was with 1:40 to go, Michigan throws it over to Terrence Williams, the second, and they're trying to feed the ball down to Hunter Dickinson, and that, you know, Indiana's surrounding him. TW2 throws it back up top. They throw it back to him because he has the angle for the post feed, and he just throws it in there, and he threw it away. You know, the Hoosiers picked it off, and then, you know, that was pretty much it. You know, IU still, they had a shot blocked, and they missed the front end of a 1-and-1. Trace Jackson Davis did. And then still Michigan with 12.9 to go. They have to settle for a contested Jet Howard 3. I don't like, you know, like you got to get a better shot than that. You might want to go to Hunter Dickinson, but, you know, I don't mind Jet Howard taking the shot, but you got to screen for him. You got to do something there. That was too much of a freelance, bad execution. And really bad execution down the stretch. Sure, get the ball to Hunter Dickinson, but you got to be strong with the ball. And, you know, Indiana, if you can't get the ball to Hunter, you got to have a play off of if you can't get it to Dickinson. It was like they couldn't get it to Dickinson, and then nobody wanted to take a big shot for U of M. Tentative. Again, Michigan was tentative down the stretch, and this one hurts. It wasn't like, you know, Indiana and Michigan had played a fine game up to the final 3 minutes, but both teams were kicking it, dropping it, missing shots, and Michigan had a golden opportunity to win this one. And when they are now, and I was going to say, when they're sitting at home watching everybody else's name on Selection Sunday go up, this is one of those games that they'll remember. Now, I know they still have an opportunity, but, you know, this, you started to look at the games, and we'll do that. We'll look at the schedule. You knew that, you know, they had 3 home games left in the regular season. They had to win those. And they're going to go on the road and then win a bunch of ball games now. So, you know, this is, that's just reality. It's not one of these things where you want to kick them when they're down, but this is just where it's at with Michigan. They're down, and they are going to hear a lot of criticism now. And, you start talking about Valentine's Day in Wisconsin. That's not going to be a fun time for Michigan over the next 2 days. They're lucky the Super Bowl's tomorrow. Nobody will really be picking on them or anything. But Monday and Tuesday, well, you get a little Super Bowl talk. But Tuesday, Juwan Howard and company going into Madison. Everybody's going to be talking about last year, the slap swing and Michigan not being in the tournament. That's that's going to be a little bit embarrassing. And, now they put themselves, however you want to say it, they painted themselves into a corner, all of that. But disappointing on the execution side, and just the overall, the team being tentative when they weren't able to get the ball into Dickinson late. And it's too bad, because there's the parts of this when the majority of this game where you watch them, you say, hey, man, this team looks like an NCAA tournament team. This team could even be dangerous. You might have some thoughts like that watching them tonight. And sure, you can go back and say you can play the would have, should have game, like, oh, they only lost to Virginia. Oh, only but Kentucky. Oh, the lament of teams, like, okay, yeah, you can hang in there to the last 4 or 5 minutes of the game, but then you can't make plays down the stretch. Basketball's about making plays down the stretch. It's about executing in the last 5 minutes of the game. You know how many good teams I've watched over the years look like they're just kind of going through the motions, and they get to the last 5 minutes of the game, and then they just start playing their ass off, and they execute, and they get the ball to who the player is supposed to go to, and they make the plays, and they win. Those teams go on. Some of them win championships. So there's not much of a moral victory looking back saying, oh, well, they were in a lot of ball games. Okay, they were in a lot of ball games. A little bit sad on this one tonight. I'll read some of the feedback. I'll give you the box scores. I'll tell you what lies ahead, all of that kind of stuff. Let's have a look. Not going to be pretty. Some people line it up and have some feedback. I'll tell you what they had to say. AJ, no coaching down the stretch. The only play they seem to have is Dickinson down low. I can't argue with that. They did a terrible job executing down the stretch. No question. AJ with another point, saying Howard's game management style is that of an NBA coach. He doesn't settle his players down, nor does he have a set. I can't argue with you on that. They had one play, and it was get the ball to Hunter, and then when they couldn't, nobody else, they didn't have something secondary off of that. You have to have something else in case that doesn't work. Somebody else has to step up and make a play. Doug McDaniel tried, Kobe Buffkin tried, but both of them were in a rush, and it was tentative. And then Jet, all three of those shots were one-on-one shows. Buffkin, after they passed it around, they actually got it to Dickinson. He kicked it back out. Buffkin had a three. He threw it back, and then late in the clock, he had to drive down the lane. Halfway decent shot, but, you can get that shot anytime you want. Doug McDaniel is 5'9". The clock's running down after they were tentative and couldn't get the ball down to Dickinson. He's going to try a floater. Sure, could have been called a goaltending. It wasn't. But you can get that shot almost any time. Terrence Williams II. Hey, if you're going to be out there and you're going to be on a Division I team, you're going to play at Michigan, and it's about getting into the tournament and the spotlight's on you, that was a terrible play. But if they're sitting over there, throw it down to Dickinson, Terrence Williams, throw it back out. They couldn't get it to him. They throw it back down to him. It was like the only play. Did you want him to jack a three-pointer? No. They needed some options off of Dickinson when they couldn't get it to him, and they had none. The Jet, the final play. In some ways, the worst one. I mean, let's take a look at the whiteboard. What did that look like? What did the whiteboard look like in the timeout with Michigan with 12 seconds to go? With 12.9. Let's look at it. Is this what they did? Inbound the ball. Dribble it around. Jack one up from up top. 12.9. That was the play. How about a little bit of a screen here? How about a roll? How about somebody else coming out over here? Whatever they were drawing up, really bad. That one ended up being the worst out of all of them. And a big L for Michigan when it comes down to it. A lot of things to like, but you got to execute down the stretch when it's big time and it's tournament time, and you got to get a win at home in one of your final home games. That's what you got to do. And Michigan came up empty. This is the game you'll look back on and you'll say, wow, Selection Sunday would have been really nice, but not tonight. No fun. Great atmosphere. Hell of a game for a long time, but then when it was time to ring the bell and execute and play like an NCAA tournament team, the air went completely out of the balloon for Coach Howard, for Hunter Dickinson, for Kobe Buffkin, for all of these guys. Not one guy, but man, the sets that were drawn up with no secondary action, what do I want to say? It's inexcusable. It made Michigan totally tentative, and Indiana was coughing it up left and right and gift wrapping this game for Michigan. That's a killer. Robert says it's a gut punch loss. Nobody wanted to take a shot down the stretch. Nice analysis, Robert. I'm right with. That's it. There you go, Robert. You're right. Nobody wanted to take a shot down the stretch. And then you get panicky when the clock's running down. Ah! I don't know why I'm screaming. They were panicky down the stretch. KC says it's a shame because they actually put in a full effort. Yeah, that's that part. Like everything was set up. I mean, this was Michigan's. I don't want to say it was their Super Bowl, but it was a game that they had to win at home. And the crowd, man, crowd was excellent. And for a lot of the game, man, you're right. Liked a lot of it. There's some I told you so's. Dooney Dunn did not like the last play design. They went 5.5 minutes without scoring and lost by 1. Bad coaching, it says here. I can't argue with that. It was bad coaching down the stretch. It doesn't matter who's telling you. If you hear somebody not talking about the plays that were drawn up and the lack of a secondary option, then, they're just feeding you lines of BS. That they're just filling you up with some, maize and blue smoke. That's on the coach. Now, yeah, the players, they can come out, step up, and make some big plays. They had a number of opportunities. You can say, you're going to blame the coach? The players are out there. They came up. Well, I like the idea of getting Hunter Dickinson a touch. It's a tough part when you're a post player, and that's the only thing you can do is put him down on the block and throw it down to him. Bring him out. Put him in a screen and roll. Get him back down there. But everybody else was shied away. And it had Michigan all jumpy. DN says it was a great play design to waste all that time to give his son the ball so he could airball it the second time in a row. Yeah, the last one was terrible. I don't know. I went through the what I saw with the play call. Assistants, they need some changes in the offseason. Yeah, well, when you don't make the tournament, what are you going to do? Like, I like both Saudi Washington and I like Howard Isley and I like Phil Martelli. But if you don't make the tournament, you just run it all back. You expect Michigan fans to be like, okay. If you do, like, there's a chance like that could happen. Like, normally when you don't make the tournament and you're the head coach, people will say, well, let's look at the head coach. Well, they're going to look at the head coach, but the head coach isn't going anywhere, nor should he right now. But the head coach then has to look at his assistants, and is he just going to say, well, let's just chill and run it back? He won't say that. Let's just run it back, work really hard, run it back. If they run it back and it looks the same next year, well, then all of them then will be on the hot seat, all of them, including the head coach. So, you know, that's what you do. I mean, it's kind of like that's the playbook. If you just go back, everybody's going to look and say, "Oh, they're just going to come back and try and do the exact same thing next year and try something." Like defense has been one of the issues all year long with the team. Like that's Sadi. He's like the DC, for the team, Michigan assistant. But they seem to in the stretch where they won, 3 games. There've been a lot like the Central game. They didn't bring the effort, so I don't know. That seems like it'd be on the head coach. That's not one of the quarters. That's not Sadi Washington. Not getting them ready to play defensively, or Howard Isley not drawing something up, or Phil Martelli. Those guys big timed it. Heading into New Year's, that's on them. Terrible loss. Down the stretch, when they had their chances against Virginia, you go game by game. Virginia, Jett Howard reached in a one-possession game and committed a intentional foul. The game was over. Over. No chance in that one. Start going through the Kentucky and North Carolina game down the stretch. It was, you have to draw up plays, then you got to execute on both sides. And then when push came to shove in crunch time in those games, they weren't able to make the key plays. Kentucky was, North Carolina was. That's what happened there. If you're telling me you think that they need somebody to design some plays so they can execute some things in one possession games with a minute or 2 minutes or 3 minutes, I'd say I'm with you on that. Let's get somebody who could draw some plays up, and that the team and they'll have some secondary options. Because what it looked like is that Michigan, and I get wanting to get Hunter Dickinson the ball, but they had no idea what to do when Indiana was guarding that. And in fact, it made everybody jumpy. And then nobody wanted to take a shot. Then there was 5 seconds to go, and it was just like, oh my God, somebody do something. Panic in Ann Arbor. That's not what you want. That's not what you want when you're a good basketball team. You want to have an option, and then you want to have a secondary option. And they didn't have that. And, that's on Howard. That's on his assistants. That's on the players. All of that. Let's read some of these out here. It was like an AAU squad. Yeah, in the last 3 minutes, I would agree with that. AJ says defense wasn't the problem. He liked Kobe's on the ball defense. I like Kobe. He had a great first half, but, Kobe Buffkin disappeared for the majority of the second half. Let's look at some of the numbers for Michigan in this one. Dickinson had 16 and 7. Buffkin had 0 points in the second half. He had 14 in the first. That seems to be an issue. Jett had 12. He had 9 in the first. And then they didn't get any help. McDaniel had that big shot attempt, got it blocked. TW2, not one of his finer games after scoring the first bucket. Terrace Reed was a bright spot. I mean, if that's what we're looking for, I guess that's what we are looking for. Let's look for a bright spot. Joey Buckets needed more than a deuce from Joey Buckets. Cheddar got in some foul trouble. He didn't really add anything. Nobody else did either. So really, nice job by Terrace Reed Jr. off the bench, but nobody else. And TW2 is back playing like he did for the majority of the year. and then they couldn't execute down the stretch. I've said that like 4 or 5 times. I took some notes and all the ones in the first half. There are a lot of nice things to look at in the first half if that's what you wanted to do. Hoosiers didn't have Race Thompson. Dickinson picked up his second foul with Michigan up 7 in the first half. I don't know if he picked up a foul for the rest of the game. U of M was up by as many as 11 in the first half. Kobe Buffkin 14 in the first half. TJD, Trace Jackson Davis had 16. Michigan was up 4 at the break. They should have been up by more. Both teams really were lackadaisical. It was kind of like the end of the game. It was like they were both matching each other's lack of intensity or being prone for turnovers, unforced turnovers, stepping on the line, dropping the ball out of bounds, inerrant pass. Both teams there. Sometimes you get that stuff when you're on the road, the crowd, but in the second half of this one, IU, I got a blank. It took a lead 3.5 in, then 9 minutes, and then it got down to 3 minutes to go. It was go time. It was execution time. Michigan falls to 14-11 and 6-6 in the conference. All the stuff about bracketology and all this last 4. For a second, if Michigan would have won this game, Joey Lenardi was ready to put Michigan as one of the last 4 out. So Michigan would have really boosted it, their profile. You could have started at least to smell it with a victory tonight. Didn't happen. Let's check the upcoming schedule. That is brought to you by the Maize and Blue Reviews. Good afternoon, Michigan football and basketball. That's heard 1 o'clock weekdays. We'll be with you on Monday. That upcoming schedule, well, you got a Valentine's Day special coming up at 9 o'clock. Take care of everything early because it's a late one on Tuesday. Juwan Howard and Greg Gard. Got to watch for the handshake line after this one. We're going to hear a lot about last year's game up in Madison during this one. And it'd be a lot better if Michigan had the W. You're thinking about watching this one now. There's going to be a lot of negativity towards Michigan, even from the Wolverines side. Nothing you can do about that. And it's deserved. Let's be honest about that. Michigan State. It's Michigan's next home game. That is coming up this Saturday, a week from today. Another late start. Late night basketball at the Chrysler Center. Spartans will be in. At Rutgers, a Sunday tilt against Wisconsin, and then that'll be the home finale. And then you have 2 road games to wrap it up into March then. At Illinois on Thursday, March the 2nd, and then March the 6th, the final regular season game back against the Hoosiers, this time in Bloomington. Hoosiers, pretty good team. They played well in Bloomington at Assembly Hall this year. And then it's the Big Ten tournament where we've seen Michigan be dangerous before. They're going to have to be dangerous again. If you just look at the schedule, you needed to get to 18 wins, I would think, to feel like you had at least a legitimate shot. And Michigan has 14 wins right now, so you're looking for 4 wins still with these remaining games. And you see they just have 6 left. So can they go 4-2 in the remaining 6 to feel like they have an okay chance? That's where you'd have to win 2 games in the Big Ten tournament. Could they win on Tuesday? Sure. Could they beat Michigan State? Sure. Probably not going to win at Rutgers. Tough place to play. And then, I don't know, they could win. Are they going to sweep Whiskey? It just puts them against their tournament odds I had heading into this game myself at 39%. I would have popped that one up to, a good 46, 47%. But now Feels like it's a 33% chance for them to get into the tournament. So still a chance. They got to get some wins. If they're able to do that, then how about win a couple in a row, make it feel like maybe something could happen. Deanne asking what Martelli does. Martelli was out tonight because of, I believe, COVID. I think it was COVID. So he wasn't able to do anything. I don't think he's sending, Juwan Howard text or anything during the game. Maybe at half he had something to say, but yeah, well, whatever it'll be interesting to hear what Juwan has to say after the game, because nothing down the last 3 minutes. I'm sure he's going to lament about being able to take care of the ball and being able to execute, but it's not like he's going to go up there and say, yeah, we drew up the plays and they just didn't execute them. You'll start talking about one game at a time and all that kind of stuff. It's tough. Well, I've already said it, and you're right. Gut punch and tough to come back from this one, but they'll have to do it on the Valentine's Day. Pretty quick turnaround up in Madison. That'll do it here. We're here after every Michigan basketball game. Thanks so much for joining us. That'll do it. The final in this one, Michigan falls by 1 to Indiana 62-61. Everybody have a great night. Enjoy the Super Bowl tomorrow. I'll talk with you on Monday on this feed at 1 o'clock. Till then,